Welcome, welcome, welcome. We'd like to welcome everyone to our 16th annual ForeverGreen Trails Conference. We're really excited to have you here today and that we're able to share this learning experience with you virtually. My name is Mary Dodsworth and I'm a former ForeverGreen Trails, I'm a current ForeverGreen Trails board member, and I'll be helping to facilitate this virtual conference today. We're so thankful that you took the time to join us and to learn more about our amazing Pierce County trail system, to focus on how we can better provide trails for all. Last year, we started talking more honestly about equity and access and inclusion. We hope to continue that conversation today. Our focus is to learn how to take our trails from ideas to implementation. But we wouldn't have the open spaces and amazing places to visit and explore if we didn't recognize, acknowledge, and honor the Native people who have lived on this land for over 10,000 years. This land and all the land in Washington is occupied land, and we're grateful for the Native people who stewarded it for many generations. The first settlers of the land that we now call Pierce County were the ancestors of today's Nisqually, Puyallup, Squaxin, Steilacoom, and Muckleshoot tribes. Because of the honor and the care that they gave to the land is here for us to use today. We're fortunate that these Indigenous people are still here today. They're still connected to these places and we honor them. And I encourage each of you to find out whose land you're on right now. Please respect and recognize them and be sure to include them in your future planning and in future conversations. And before I introduce our first speaker, I wanted to thank the many friends of ForeverGreen Trails and sponsors who helped bring us this event today. You can see on your slide, we're very thankful for the support of the Puyallup Watershed Initiative, Pierce County, specifically the Parks and Recreation Division, cities of University Place, Puyallup, Tacoma, Bonnie Lake, Washington Trails Association, Chambers Creek Foundation, REI, Virginia Mason, Whole Foods, Bob Drill Landscaping, and of course, the many people on the ForeverGreen Trail board. We couldn't do it without you, and we really appreciate your ongoing support. Now, my job today is to keep us on time and keep us on track. So let's take a look at this agenda for today. You can see that we have an impressive group of folks here to share. Larry Leveen, he's our Executive Director of ForeverGreen Trails, will be working behind the scenes to keep things moving. He's the magic. And Brianne Blackburn from Pierce County Parks and I will also be helping track your questions in the chat room. So please use that feature so that we can make sure that we can share your comments or get those questions answered. We are leaving a little bit of time at the end of each presentation to have questions and answers. So we'll work our best to get, if there's time, to cover those areas. And of course, with all virtual experiences, we really appreciate your patience and your grace as we transition from slide to slide and speaker to speaker so that we can bring you this wonderful learning opportunity today. So let's get this party started. We're super fortunate to have John Snyder with us today. John is the policy advisor for the Governor Jay Inslee in the area of outdoor recreation and economic development. So first of all, the fact that the state has put both outdoor recreation and economic development in the same category says an awful lot about the awareness that the governor has on the positive impact that the work that we do, developing quality, that supports quality of life and our local economy. John was appointed in 2015 and coordinates policy, legislation, budget items, and community outreach. Thank you, John, for opening up our conference today. We welcome you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. And welcome, trail friends. I can't see you, but I know you're there. On behalf of Governor Inslee, thank you for joining today in this effort to promote trails in our state. As you know, the governor is a huge supporter of trails and loves to get on a trail himself. Just recently, I was on a trail with the governor, had to lend him my 1991 Fuji Sandblaster non-suspension mountain bike on a tricky stretch in Mount Rainier National Park, but I'm happy to report he came back alive and in good health. How many of you are parents and maybe parents of teenagers? I can't see anybody raise hands because we're on Zoom, but you may know that, being a parent's, part exasperation, part exhilaration. My daughter surprised me the other day writing an essay about a 250-mile bike ride that she did on the YMCA Counselor in Training program a year ago, 2 years ago. And she talked about some things that surprised me. She talked about going up the largest hill on the ride and pulling over halfway and throwing up, and then getting on her bike and making it the rest of the way up the hill. And she finished this essay with this line. She said, "There's nothing like blazing down a hill that took the life out of you to get up." And I really love that line because it really makes me think about what we've all been through in COVID in the last year. It's just been a crazy year for outdoor recreation, for us in general. It's been a time of great loss, great confusion, but also great resilience. And I'm interested in how COVID has maybe changed a little bit about what we're working on with trails. I just had the privilege of being at an Outdoor Industry Association presentation earlier in the week. And they had some pretty interesting information about how the pandemic has changed some of our outdoor recreation habits. So there are 4 areas that have seen big increases since COVID happened. Fishing is one, probably no surprise to folks. Camping, another one. Anybody trying to get a campsite in the state will know that as well. And then the last 2 are hiking and biking. And biking is interesting because according to the Outdoor Industry Association, it was on a small decline before COVID, and now it is just shot back up. And people, more than ever, trails are just skyrocketing in popularity. And you can see that evidence all over. Just this week, Amazon has donated $7.5 million to the East Side Rail Corridor project north here in King County. And even in places like Malden in Eastern Washington, a town that was ravaged by wildfire just a short while ago, they have made putting a trail, highlighting the trail, the Palouse Cascades Trail through their town as a linchpin of their redevelopment for their town. So the popularity of trails, I don't feel has ever been higher. The trick is sometimes the political support lags. And so when we're trying to reduce the time that it takes from taking a trail from idea to implementation, the trick is triangulating all the support that is needed to move forward. But the COVID also offers us some pretty interesting examples of things that people said couldn't be done or were too hard to do or too expensive that we just turned on a dime and did them. I mean, we had the payroll protection program that helped pay restaurateurs to keep and other businesses to keep their employees when times were tough last year. We had open streets initiatives where cities shut down blocks and reconfigured roads so that people could eat at restaurants and parking spaces in ways that they've never had before. We had changes in the child tax credit, and we even developed a vaccine in less than a year, which is really unprecedented. So to me, that gives me inspiration when you think about all the obstacles and challenges there are out there to making trails, that we can actually do some things, sometimes quite quickly, to make those situations turn around. Larry asked me to give you a little bit of a high-level rundown of what's happening in the federal government right now as far as future opportunities for trail money. As many folks know, right now we have an infrastructure bill and a budget reconciliation bill that are being considered today, actually, and for the next few weeks, most likely, to be passed in Congress. The bad news first. The bad news first is there's still lots to figure out there, and we don't know what exactly will happen. But the good news is, in the bills that the House of Representatives passed, there are some real great things for trails right now. In the infrastructure bill, RTP, the Recreational Trails Program, has a big increase in money. The other big funding source in transportation for trails, the Transportation Alternatives Program, which is the kind of money you access from your regional metropolitan planning organizations like PSRC, has a big proposed increase in money. And then in the reconciliation bill that was passed by the House, there are 2 new buckets of money that could be used for trails. One is called the Neighborhood Access and Equity Grant Program. It's proposed to have $4 billion in there that could be used for many things, but including regional active transportation networks between communities, which is some of the things we're all working on. And then another new bucket called the Community Climate Incentive Grants Program, which is proposed to have $3 billion, and trails are an eligible project for that program. Now, I don't know where this is all going to land, but if we passed a bill similar to what was passed by the House in the Senate, it would open up some really great new resources for trails on the federal level. And when we think about this though, I often start thinking about what are some of the challenges we have on the horizon, regardless of money, when it comes to trails. And I come up with, there's kind of 4 things that really stick out in my mind right now that I'd like to share. First off is the new census data is showing us that over 50% of Americans under the age of 18 are from communities of color. That is a big change. And those are the future of our trail users. How do we make sure that we are doing infrastructure and doing things in urban areas, doing things that generate users from that next generation? Another one is Americans with disabilities. I encourage you to check out the latest white paper from Disability Rights Washington. Great information about how we are failing folks who are disabled for getting around, particularly with sidewalks. And this has a big connection to trails because multi-use trails, sidewalks, all that infrastructure connects to make a better urban environment for all of us. The other thing I see on the horizon is impacts from trails and other recreation on upland treaty rights of our tribal partners. Our tribal partners have lots of really key concerns that we will continue to address and look at about how we can increase trails and increase usership, but not degrade these public lands and not degrade the treaty rights which these sovereign nations have had since time immemorial. And then lastly, planning for future capacity I see as a big issue. I often joke to folks that I think that the Burke-Gilman should be the first trail in the country that's double-decker, right? Like it should have like a top and a bottom almost to it. We, I think, are going to in the future run into problems where our trails can be so successful in certain urban areas that it's almost impossible for us to handle all the different users that want to use them, like walking and biking at the same time. So how do we plan for that capacity and figure out how to expand, figure out how to separate users, figure out how to think of our trail needs 10 to 20 years in the future, the same way we do with things like education and transportation. So with that, that's just a few things to think about as you go through this process today. I want to thank Larry, Mary, everyone who's organized this event. I love this Trails Conference. I try to come every year, and I know all of you are putting in amazing work in your communities to make trails that connect with people and connect with places. And that is just great work. And I want to support you however I can, and the governor does too. So please have a great rest of the conference. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, John. You know, since the beginning of the pandemic, you've been such a friend to all of us working on all of these important issues, but also you've been our inside connection. You've also shared our voice and our message with the governor directly, and we're very, very grateful. It's made a big difference. So thanks for opening up our conference, and we appreciate you being here. Okay. The next thing that we wanted to chat about, just to remind you, when you're looking at the view of this conference, we're going to have several slideshows coming up. So you might want to put speaker view on. It's on the right-hand corner, up at the top right-hand corner under view. The speaker view will allow you to get, you know, a big screenshot of our presentations, and then you'll be able to see what our speakers are talking about. Speaking of which, our next speaker, I'd like to introduce Ben Donatello. He's going to talk a little bit about our statewide trail plan. Ben is a policy specialist with the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office, or RCO, as we all call it. He's worked with staff and stakeholders to research, update, and create policies related to salmon recovery, recreation, and conservation. Ben came to RCO in 2016 from Montana, where he worked in the outdoor industry for a variety of nonprofits, public land advocacy, and recreation. So welcome, Ben. It's good to have you with us, and we appreciate you sharing today.
Unmute. There we go. Thanks, Mary. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thanks for the invitation, Larry and Mary and everybody involved in putting this on. Larry asked me to talk a little bit about the update that we are currently working on to the state trails plan, and bear with me here while I get set up with my presentation. So can you all see the screen, my slideshow okay?
Yep, it's perfect.
Great, thanks, Mary. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Recreation and Conservation Office, we are a small cabinet agency, works for the governor's office. We were established by Citizen Initiative in 1964. We provide staff support to 4 governor-appointed boards, and 2 of which oversee our grant programs, and that's the Salmon Recovery Funding Board and the Recreation and Conservation Funding Board. So we, as the Recreation and Conservation Office, do not physically manage lands or recreation facilities, but we serve more like a philanthropic foundation for the state, administering grant programs and managing studies and coordinating strategic policy priorities. So our agency manages a capital investment budget of around 550 to 650 million every biennium. And that's divided out amongst 29 different competitive grant programs that all fund outdoor recreation, habitat and working lands conservation, salmon and orca recovery. And I think one of the really cool things about our agency is that all of our grants are reviewed, all of our grant programs and the applications that come in are reviewed by citizen volunteers. So we have over 200 volunteers that sit on advisory committees for each grant program, and they help us evaluate all the proposals and help us distribute the funding to all the great projects that we help to enable. So let's see. So this State Recreation and Conservation Plan, or SCORP as it's sometimes called, is really our big 5 to 10 year strategic plan that helps guide the funding priorities for all of those different grant programs. Our current SCORP plan expires in 2022. And so we're in the process of updating that plan as we speak. There were 5 priorities from that plan that talk about things like sustaining our legacy, keeping the investments alive that we've made over the last 50 years, improving equity of access to outdoor recreation opportunities, getting kids outside, addressing the changing demographics of the state, and really providing recreation opportunities that are meaningful for people where they live, work, and play. And then really asserting outdoor recreation as a vital public service. And so those were the priorities of the last SCORP. As we work to update the next iteration of this plan, those priorities will get revised by an advisory committee that we're working with. There are several planning products that come out of this plan process, and that is demand and need assessment, which is a statewide survey that's statistically significant and representative of the population of Washington residents. And that really gets into what activities people do and how often and where they like to do them. Something new that we're working on for this year is what we're calling an experience survey. So kind of pulling back the layers of the onion a little bit and getting more at the heart of why people like to recreate, where they do, when they do, what's the motivation there. And also, what are the barriers that prevent people from recreating outside as much as they would like to? So really trying to dive in and get a little bit more qualitative information. So that's a new feature that we're that we're putting into the SCORP this year. We've updated a mapped inventory, and we will integrate several program plans that talk about things like athletic facilities and boating areas, boating facilities. But that's not why you're all here. You're here to hear about trails. And so because trails cut across so many different types of recreational activities, and it's such a key focus for our agency, we have a separate advisory committee that's helping us with the statewide trails plan. So the statewide trails plan will kind of be aligned with the priorities of SCORP as it comes out. And my colleague who's working on the SCORP plan and I are working really closely to ensure that that alignment happens. We'll take advantage a lot of those of the survey work and the mapped inventory work that we're both contributing to. But really the state trails plan is our key to unlocking the recreational trails program funding from the federal government, which John alluded to. And we're all hopeful that we do get a boost in that funding with the infrastructure bill. And then the kind of big thing that the plan does is it identifies strategic policy and program funding priorities for the state trail system and kind of directs how we as the agency implement our trails programs over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. So like I said, we're working with an advisory committee to help us talk about the issues and come up with recommendations to the Recreation Conservation Funding Board. And the advisory committee has sort of come up with these 6 sort of focus areas, and you'll see those focus areas reflected in some of the community engagement work that we're about to launch. And that's really what I'm excited to talk about with y'all here today, is we are getting ready to launch a targeted and focused community engagement process that really encompasses several of those surveys and some really fun things that I think people will be able to interact with. We're getting ready in mid-October to launch a new website that will sort of be the hub for all of this community engagement work. And there will be opportunities for folks to contribute to surveys, tell us some stories about why they like to recreate, where they like to recreate, maybe share some photos and have a little bit of interaction. And one of the exciting things is if you log into this hub site and complete one of our surveys, you will have an opportunity to be entered into a drawing to win a Discover Pass, which I think is really exciting. So I wanted to share real quickly just a couple of screenshots of the website to give people a little bit of an orientation of what it'll look like and where you can go and access those engagement opportunities. And so this is our landing page. It's got the nice colorful photo. And then we talk a little bit about why we plan and why we're updating the plan. But then you scroll down and immediately you get to see opportunities for engagement. And there's 3 surveys that we are going to launch and roll out over the course of October, November, December, right before the holidays. And so this is your opportunity to provide feedback to us, to the advisory committees that are helping us develop the plans right now, in advance of any recommendations coming out. So this is really an exciting opportunity for folks to have that input before really any of the recommendations are developed. And then once we collect all of this input and feedback, we'll work on it with the advisory committees, come up with some recommendations for the board and for how we manage our trails programs moving forward for the next couple of years. And then we'll bring that back out to the community and we'll offer more opportunities to provide feedback on what those recommendations look like and a summary of the feedback that we hear. There'll also be a place to see what mapped data we have. And so we're working to put together a new mapped inventory of all recreational opportunities across the state, as well as we're working on a new database project, and there'll be some information about that for statewide trails database. And then finally, it just closes out with a little bit of contact information. And feel free, you all, to reach out to myself. My email is on the slide here, or Katie Pruitt, my colleague that's leading the comprehensive plan, the SCORT plan efforts. And we're happy to answer any questions. So really appreciate the opportunity to be here and tell you a little bit about where we are in our planning process. Like I said, we're aiming to launch this website and these survey opportunities come mid-October. And I think with that, if there are questions out there from folks, I'm happy to answer and stop sharing.
Thanks so much, Ben. Hey, I have a quick question. What can Pierce County collectively do to provide support for this effort, either now or be preparing for, you know, as you're looking for more information or input?
Yeah, great question, Mary. So Pierce, we actually have a whole special survey for land managers and recreation providers that will be accessed through that website that I showed. We call it the provider survey. But so for those folks that are trail managers, representatives from city or county governments, or work for nonprofit organizations that help manage trails, that's a special survey that will be coming out probably late October into November for those folks. Aside from that, general residents of Pierce County, we'd love to have as many folks as possible log in and engage with those other public surveys.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. And we are at the front end of this. And so I know we're going to be hearing more from you now and beyond. So when we do get those links, would you like us to forward them and share them with our various agencies, nonprofit organizations, community groups? Are you looking for that support with the outreach?
100%. Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah. So I can share those links with Larry and he can help distribute them, hopefully, once we're up and running.
I have a question. How do individuals get on your advisory boards? You have a lot of different groups providing support. Are you always in need of volunteers, or are you looking for, how do people participate?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. And that's not a planted question. I meant to mention that in my presentation, but yes, we are constantly looking for volunteers to help us on those advisory committees. I can get you in touch with, we have a volunteer coordinator in our office, and I can get you in touch with her. She's actually on maternity leave right now, but if you reach out to me, if you're interested, or I can get her contact information to you, Mary, or Larry as well.
That's so great. Well, we have an amazing contingency in Pierce County. ForeverGreen Trails is happy to help facilitate that with our partners. And then also just in the park and recreation world in Pierce County, we have, you know, quite a great network of folks. So we're happy to help you with that. So Ben, thank you so much. You know, I think RCO, you did show some of those maps. And for those of you that might be on the conference that aren't familiar with those maps are available all the time. And they're wonderful when you're doing grant applications, but they're really great to use year round because they have so much good data on they can narrow down to your particular community. And so RCO has just been such a great resource for getting the word out, sharing, you know, the importance of trails and parks and recreation, as well as just helping us tell our story. So we're thankful for that. And we're really thankful that you could join us today. And just know that we'll probably be coming back for updates down the road as you gather more information and work on this trail plan. It's really important to us.
You bet. We're just getting started. So thanks for that, Mary. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, we're moving right along and we're staying on time and on track. So that's wonderful. And so we're going to jump right into our next session because, you know, that's what we do virtually is we keep on track and we share information quickly to keep everybody focused. And so we're excited about this next presentation. We called it speed dating in the past, and I know A lot of people really, it's one of our most requested sessions. People are most interested in what's happening throughout the county. We really wanted to pull it from the very end of our conference to the middle or the beginning of the conference so that people can get really excited about what's happening, across the county area. So our next speakers are going to provide a quick overview of what's happening with trails throughout Pierce County, and they're going to be looking at the next 6 years. Many of you know that we kind of look from a capital perspective on a 6-year window. And so some of these projects are just getting started. Some might be in the planning phases. Some we may be moving dirt, and in others we're cutting ribbons and getting ready to enjoy them. So we're fortunate to have Brianne Blackburn today and Kristina Walker with us. They're going to highlight some exciting trail projects in various stages. Brianne Blackburn is the Trails Coordinator for Pierce County Parks and Recreation. She is doing so much. She has a background in project management and planning with state and local jurisdictions. She has been fostering partnerships and planning projects, and she is adding miles to the Pierce County Trail System. And so we're really excited to have her speaking with us today. She's also on the ForeverGreen Trails Board. We're lucky to have her. Kristina Walker is a member of the Tacoma City Council. Prior to that, from 2011 to 2020, she served as the Executive Director for Downtown on the Go. If you don't know about this group, you should. They're a nonprofit organization that promote and advocate for walking and biking and transit in downtown Tacoma. I know that you're going to hear and feel the passion that both of these ladies have for addressing the needs of equity, improving multimodal transportation, and protecting access to our open space areas. So thank you for being here today, ladies, and we'll take it from here.
Great, thank you, Mary. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen sharing going. Okay, I think we're set up. There's always a bit of a process getting things going, but I appreciate your patience. My name, as Mary mentioned, Brianne Blackburn. I work with Pierce County Parks, bringing trails all over the region and coordinating with our partners across the state. And I'm excited to talk to you today about, as Mary mentioned, something we called speed dating at one point. So we'll get into that a little bit. I know I work with closely with many of you in the room, so much of what I have to present today is not going to be new information. And because we are trying to mimic what we started once upon a time, it will hopefully go quickly. Let me go ahead and excuse me. There we go. So we met in person last in 2019, I believe, and we did something called Four Corners, which really looked and felt like speed dating for trail enthusiasts. Like most things, there's a bit of a nuance to trying to recreate that in a virtual setting, but it was requested, and so we're going to do our best. Today, we're going to dive into updates on projects across the county. Hopefully have some time for questions at the end. These updates are intended to be quick. So we all know most people here could probably spend this entire session on their favorite trail. So we'll try to keep the ball rolling. In addition to me talking about projects, we'll hear directly from folks that have made work happen on the Tacoma to Puyallup project. It'll be hopefully fun, a little fast, and hold on. And please do remember to submit questions if you have them, and we'll take them at the end of the presentation. By way of orientation, I'd like to start with this map. Not that we're going to rely on these our park system regional boundaries, but I want to acknowledge the space that Pierce County Parks works in, not only for trail development, but our parks and recreation programs as well. We have a few staff from our parks team logged on today, so I want to put in a plug for the good work we do across the whole system. In addition to regional trails, we also manage regional parks, multi-sport complexes, special use facilities, and primarily serving our unincorporated Pierce County. So in 2020, we updated our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, which includes the Regional Trails Plan, which speaks to our vision of a connected system of trails linking communities to parks, open spaces, public facilities, and areas of interest, providing non-motorized transportation and recreational opportunities. Our regional trail system has over 68 miles of existing trail. By 2030, Pierce County will add at least 30 more miles of trail, with over 300 miles proposed across jurisdictions. And this wouldn't be an agency presentation without a conversation about prioritization. With 300 miles of ideas, we have to strategize how those decisions get made. In addition to looking at our trail network, like regional and local connections, we also look at demographics and other community data to drive our future investment in the system. You heard Ben talk about a demand and need assessment. We do the same thing for our pros plan, and that's how we really focus our development in the future. As we get into the project details, we'll be talking a lot about Pierce County projects, but I want to emphasize the partnerships across our system. With 23 cities and other trail providers, most of what we get done comes from collaboration and creative planning, both within Pierce County and with our regional statewide partners. So with that, I want to kick things off by handing it off to Tacoma City Council member Kristina Walker to talk about the Tacoma to Puyallup connection.
Awesome. Thank you, Brianne. And good afternoon. So glad to be here and excited to talk to you all about Tacoma to Puyallup Trail Connection. As far as vision and idea, this project has been envisioned by the community for years and years and years. I came into the process in 2016, so that's where I will start my presentation, but I know that many have come before me that laid the groundwork for this. So the Tacoma to Puyallup Regional Trail Connection is just as it sounds, a trail that will connect Tacoma to Puyallup. And I'll give you the 5-year background, a lot of details here, and of course you can check, or you can get this presentation later and look into the details. But a really key thing happened in 2016. At that point, I was working at Downtown on the Go and working with the Puyallup Watershed Initiative's Active Transportation Community of Interest, the ATCOI. And that group dedicated funds to the Tacoma to Tacoma Trail Network Benefit Report. And the beauty of that report is it looked at the entire network. Again, talking about vision for trails, Tacoma to Tacoma has long been the vision, I know, for all of us here in Pierce County. But that report pulled together data around what it would mean to build the entire thing. So looking at health, looking at transportation, but also looking at the environment and the economy, and especially the equity benefits to our community if we would build the entire thing. So a really important document that guided a lot of our conversations, both with elected officials and all of us, to get ourselves on the same page. And so that work, showed that $13 million a year would be brought to the community, definitely worth building. And then also recognize that the toughest part to build would be this Tacoma to Puyallup section, or Puyallup to Tacoma. So in 2018, or in 2017, 2018, we worked to bring together this leadership cohort. And this was really key to making progress on this part, because that trail section touches land from the Puyallup tribe, WashDOT, the cities of Tacoma, Puyallup, and Fife, the Port of Tacoma, Metro Parks Tacoma. And then we pulled together the nonprofits that were part of this conversation too. So that was ForeverGreen Trails, the ATCOI, and myself at Downtown on the Go. We were lucky enough that year to get a small grant to send that team of leaders to Copenhagen to not only learn about what it looks like to connect trail, what it felt like to ride on connected trails, but also to learn together. And we were very inspired, all of us, and we came back with really a vision for this piece of the trail. So everybody who participated in that cohort experience brought money to the table to then do the trail analysis study. And I'm going to put a link in the chat to the full trail analysis so you can take a look at that. But you should know that we looked at 3 different routes: River Road, Levee Road, and the new SR 167 alignment. So that is the to be built SR 167. And we looked at, in that trail analysis, we were looking at safety, we were looking at connectivity. We didn't want to build a part of a trail, we wanted to connect these cities. We looked at accessibility, equity, the environmental and community fit, and then ultimately the cost. So all of those things went into the trail data, and we came out saying 167 route was selected both as a lower hanging fruit. We're not saying we don't want to also build a trail on River Road, but that this is where we want to focus our attention. So we took that data into 2021 legislative session and asked 2.3 million in funding for preliminary engineering and environmental documentation. And I can't thank enough the leadership in both the House and the Senate this year. Speaking of visions for trails, Representative Jake Fye has been a champion for multimodal transportation for years and years. And so when we presented this project very specifically, I think it was something he was excited to get behind, but really we owe a lot of thanks to Representative Fye. And then on the Senate side, we had leadership from Senator Tawana Nobles that helped us get this across the finish line this year, when not a lot of things got across the finish line. So we're really pretty proud of that work and very, very thankful to our team in the legislature. In addition, the legislature chose to fund 2.5 million in a very small, but very, very important connection that I'll show you on the map. So we can go to the next slide. And I'll give you a second just to orient here. Green is existing. I think most of you on this call are probably relatively familiar with what's existing there. Yellow is our Tacoma to Pueblo Trail connection, and the dotted yellow just means we haven't figured out which route to go yet. So one or the other of those will be the final route. And then blue is, some is actually constructed, but it's all funded. And you can see that little, the little piece up there at the northeast corner is what was funded this year to connect us into northeast Tacoma. So very exciting. And again, just because we didn't choose the River Road or the Levee Road connection doesn't mean those shouldn't also have great trails on them in the future, but this is where we'll focus. And I also want to note one thing, because a lot of people have asked, you know, I don't really want to ride alongside a freeway, and I absolutely agree. This will be a grade separated trail, so the cars will be up above and the trail will be down below. There are a few crossings that are complicated, which is what we're embarking on right now. You can go ahead and go to the next one. I just want to give some big thank yous to all of the folks, the leadership that were part of that original cohort, most of whom are still participating in the process. Leadership at WSDOT, Secretary Millar has been a great champion of multimodal transportation. And as we head into this next phase, the preliminary engineering and environmental documentation, we've got a great team. They just finalized the scope this week, actually. So we're going ahead with that. And then you will see the construction of stage 1A, 1B trail. That's, you know, the technical term that nobody understands is just that little piece to connect into northeast Tacoma. And today you can already ride across I-5 through Fife there. So check that out when you have a chance. And then as far as next steps, we hope to get that all completed with a cost estimate by the end of 2022 so that we're ready for the 2023 session. We do know that there's a possibility that the legislature will come together this year, and we do have a construction funding in that the House recommended project list. So anything could happen, but we are looking forward to the 2023 session where we will have an ask. There will be a lot of public outreach as part of the preliminary engineering and environmental documentation, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to put the link in the chat that goes to the Downtown on the Go website where they're holding all of these documents and things, and happy to answer any questions anytime.
Kristina, there's one question in the chat. Has the Puyallup tribe participated in the River Road and Levee Road trail routes?
The Puyallup tribe has been very involved in this cohort, and so everything that we've done since 2016, they've been at the table. I should say maybe close to the end of 2017 when we really started working with them. So they have been part of the process for deciding which one of those 3 routes to go. So as far as the next steps for River Road and Levee Road, I don't have any additional information once we decided to go the other direction as far as current work on River Road. But I know that that's part of a future conversation with the county and WSDOT.
That's great. So Brianne, do you have some other projects you wanted to share with us today?
I absolutely do. I am going to move through these. So we're going to get into kind of the speed portion. I'm going to roll through quite a few different projects here as we move across Pierce County. So I'm going to start with looking to the west at the Cushman Trail in Gig Harbor. Many are familiar with the 6.2 mile Cushman Trail, which largely follows the Tacoma Power Corridor from the Narrows Bridge through to Gig Harbor. The city of Gig Harbor and Penn Met Parks are working hard at the future of this system, and I just wanted to touch on a few projects that are ongoing. Back in 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago now, I feel like, they completed a planning study looking at expanding this trail north to the Kitsap County's established bicycle routes on a safe non-motorized trail. This project identified a preferred route starting at the Borgen trailhead and heading north, and analyzed grade separated crossings of both Borgen, State Route 16, and Canterwood Boulevard. And that's available online. No word on funding for that, but that's queued up for future development of Cushman Trail. And in exciting funding news, Penn Met Parks was awarded RCO grant funding to provide a missing link shown here on the bottom of the screen to connect the existing Cushman Trail to the Narrows Bridge in coming years. So exciting things happening over on the west side. I'm going to move on to kind of what I'm calling the pipeline trail system. This is, as the map shows, kind of in more central Pierce County. This is, we'll talk about the pipeline trail itself and then talk about some adjacent trail and park development that's kind of happening around this spine. The city of Tacoma completed the approximately 5 mile pipeline trail from the downtown area out to unincorporated Pierce County. And Pierce County Parks is developing the design for the next phase of the pipeline trail, slated for construction in 22 and 23. This will add about 1.6 miles of trail and will connect to Orange Gate Park, which you can see in the middle of that circle. The red circle on the map is a green dot. That's the location of Orange Gate Park, and we'll talk more about that in the next slide. This, in addition to the trail, will also provide trailhead facilities and set the stage for future phases to complete the trail out to South Hill, where we'll connect into existing trail in Nathan Chapman and beyond. I say and beyond because we have lots of vision for the future, connecting down all the way to the Foothills Trail, which will create will be an engineering feat to get down the hill, but will create quite a network for our regional trail system. So along the path, we've got along Pipelines Trail, we have Orange Gate Park that kind of falls right in the middle of the Pipeline Trail corridor. This is a 160-acre undeveloped park, and we are in the process of master planning and developing this park alongside the Pipeline Trail development. This is a unique opportunity in our regional trail system to link urban areas out to recreation and a diverse recreation. So we talk a lot about our regional trail system, which looks a lot like our paved multimodal trails, but we also have a lot of soft surface and other recreation opportunities in Pierce County that we need access to and want to get people plugged into. So Orange Gate Park's a great opportunity for that. We have capital improvements underway with some of the soft surface trails in Orange Gate right now, and the more extensive capital improvements continuing through 2024. So what you're looking at here is kind of the layout of the park and emphasizing the different elements that'll be in each of them. And just to, as we're talking about idea to implementation for trails today, I really want to emphasize that sometimes it happens fast and sometimes it happens a little bit slower. This property, Orange Gate property, was one of the first conservation futures properties purchased in the 90s in Pierce County, and it's been sitting anxiously waiting the right timelines and funding for development, and we're excited that that's coming together. So as we continue kind of southeast towards on the pipeline corridor, we get to this little piece of property in the picture here. It's the forested piece of property and the adjacent cleared piece of property on the corner of 94th, where the corridor, where the pipeline trail will terminate and join up with existing trail infrastructure. This is what we call Half Dollar Park. Right now, it looks like a stand of trees that gets used by local residents as an informal BMX and pump track. This will be the home to a second trailhead for the pipeline trail and some park development as well. So we'll look at some soft surface walking loops and BMX track to stay with how the locals are currently using it, and incorporate some nature play and some other elements into this center. So this will happen in the future as we continue to develop the pipeline trail as funding and time is available. Okay, I'm going to move on to the Foothills Trail. Not surprising, the Foothills Trail has a number of things happening adjacent to it. So I'm excited to report Cascade Junction to Carbonado leg of the trail is gearing up. We're looking at a feasibility project. We're scoping that project right now with a consultant to figure out how we continue the trail from the existing Foothills Trail at Cascade Junction, which is just east of the South Prairie Trailhead, towards Wilkeson and Carbonado, with an eye towards that ultimate vision of connecting to Mount Rainier National Park. This feasibility study will hopefully set us up to understand costs and first steps towards construction in future years so we can begin applying for funding. That project is underway now, and we expect to be wrapping that up in 22. And the much anticipated link between Pierce and King counties at the White River Bridge is also moving forward. This is a King County led project to construct pedestrian access across the White River near the 410 highway bridge linking Buckley's Foothills Trail to Enumclaw's new Foothills sections. This project has seen some delays due to permitting requirements, but is currently targeting 2022 for construction. Another project we have underway, it's maybe a little bit less exciting than those regional connections, but if you're on the receiving end of phone calls from the public about access and parking, it is in fact exciting. In 2022, Pierce County Parks will be expanding trailhead capacity at the East Puyallup Trailhead, looking to expand from the current 26 stalls to over 70 parking stalls. There'll be some other improvements associated with that, but the parking is the primary improvement. So staying in this Foothills region, White River Flume Trail is another project that's ongoing. We are working with Cascade Water Alliance to develop the White River Flume Trail. This is a partnership to open a gravel trail along the existing Flume maintenance road. This project is focused on minimal improvements, mainly safety measures at road crossings, and it is ongoing. Design and partnership agreements are in the works. So this on this map, you can see that the yellow line, it's a little bit small on this screen, but that yellow line is the phase we're looking at developing with future connections towards Buckley and linking to Foothills Trail. All right, Parkland Community Trail. Some of these projects we've highlighted in past years, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on them, but the Parkland Community Trail is moving forward. This is an exciting community trail project in one of our fastest growing areas of unincorporated Pierce County. So this trail will connect 5 schools, 3 parks, and PLU with a safe route to move around the community, which currently has very few sidewalks. This picture you're looking at is not Parkland, but it is an example of what Parkland Community Trail will look like. So we're taking a community that doesn't have a lot of sidewalks and connecting it with a 12-foot regional trail. Right now, this will connect to Pacific Lutheran University and the Franklin Pierce School District property and down to the Sprinker Recreation Center. This is exciting with the developing transit opportunities that are happening nearby. And we hope to continue in the future with plans with PLU to find connections beyond our current phase of the project. Right now, we are in detailed design and plan for construction in 22 and 23. Chambers Creek Canyon Trail. This is an exciting project as well, and a number of people on the line have waited many years to see it come together. And the most exciting piece of this project is it is in construction as we speak. Chambers Creek Canyon Trail will connect Kobayashi Park and University Place west all the way to Chambers Creek Road and into the regional park. There's existing trail currently, but our current effort will provide 2 bridges and connecting trail and boardwalk to provide a through trail experience. Excuse me. The Bridge 1, which you can see kind of in the upper right-hand corner, is in construction currently, and we're working on design for the trail and boardwalk connecting to Bridge 2. All right, the Yelm Prairie Line Trail is another important connection as we're talking about regional connections to our partner jurisdictions. This trail will provide the only non-motorized and fully protected connection between Thurston and Pierce County, and will play an important role as we move forward in conversations about a Pierce County route in the Cross-State Trail and linking rural communities to trail access. This project links completed portions of the trail in Thurston County to planning projects slated for Pierce County side of the project. The city of Yelm was awarded partial funding from RCO for their 1.2 mile connection, and PSR planning funds have been secured for the Pierce County side of the trail. WashDOT has also submitted an application for federal funds to continue planning into preliminary design. With that, I don't know that I left a lot of time for questions, but I am open to it if some are on tap.
Thank you, Brianna. You know, it's so amazing to see all of those bits and pieces of projects coming forward. And sometimes it feels like you're putting Band-Aids all around, and then to watch them all get connected is so exciting. And as you say, some things move quickly and some things certainly take time, but boy, you have so many partners out there that you're working with. And I think Councilmember Walker also mentioned that as well. How many different partners have had to come together to make this happen? And, you know, that's always important, and it's always a joy, but boy, sometimes it can be a real challenge too. So I'm not seeing any specific questions in the chat room, but just know as we work on these projects, ForeverGreen Trails is constantly sharing these partner updates at their meetings. They are regularly reaching out to the community. It's always a very, very much a work in progress. So we're thankful that you came today to share us with that. It was speed dating. I was bouncing along, but you really did cover all over the county. And thank you also, Councilmember Walker, for sharing all that information downtown Tacoma. So much exciting things happening in the county. So I'm just going to double check real quick to see if there were any. Everybody was just saying what a great job you've done, and it's so wonderful to see all these things happening. We're really, really thankful for that. So again, everybody, we're on track, we're on time, and that was a quick first hour. So we're going to take a quick short break, and it's time for you maybe to get up and stretch. It's been kind of a crazy day. Stretch a little bit, but stay tuned because Larry Leveen is going to introduce some highlights of the great work happening with some of our partners this year. So we're going to get together, it says here, in about 8 minutes. So you get about 8 minutes. You can grab a drink of water, take a stretch, but listen in. We'll see you back at 3:09.
And this is Larry. Hi there. Actually, what we're going to do is talk about some of our partners while we take this little break. But you can, as the slide says, stretch your legs, get some water. But hey, plant yourself back in your chair because there's, we're going to do a little report back on our 5th annual Pierce County Trails Day with events all over the county from Mount Rainier to Key Peninsula. 32 as a matter of fact, and that's a record for our organization. 22 of those were in-person events, and 10 events were DIY, if you will, downloadable walking tours, etc. And that was, you know, enabling folks, if they were unavailable on Trails Day, you know, you want to have all your Trails Day eggs in one basket. They could do it at any time. If they were needing to avoid crowds because they're immune compromised, they didn't want to gather in groups, they could utilize the DIY events. And there are so many of them. They're still available on our website, links to them. Awesome audio self-guided tours from partners like Downtown on the Go and the State Historical Society, etc. So please do check those out. They're super fabulous. And we appreciate all of the partners we had hosting events all around the county. Our first-time event partners, Campfire Coffee, Cascade Bicycle Club's major tailored program that focuses on disadvantaged youth, the Chinese Reconciliation Project Foundation, Citizens for a Healthy Bay, Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, and the Pierce County Evergreen Committee of Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance. Keep End Parks, Puget Sound Energy Running the Movement, which focuses on health access for immigrant communities, and Thrive Center out of Edgewood, Trash Mountain Cleanup, you can find them on Instagram, and the Wilkeson Booster Club. And there were lots of really interesting collaborations as well, where multiple hosts put on events together. We thank Campfire Coffee and Tacoma Washington Bike Club, Trash Mountain Cleanup and Major Taylor Program, Critical Mass, Asia Pacific Cultural Center, Pierce County Conservation District, and longtime partner Tahoma Audubon Society, Pierce County Parks with the Stewardship Program, along with Pierce Transit and Pierce Trips at the Sprinkler Recreation Center, Transit and Trails, and Breezeman Forest Hike, and Running the Movement and Comunidad Latinos Outdoor were extra amazing partners, putting on 2 events on the Friday before Trails Day. The day before, they put on the BC social bike ride, but it was also an educational event along with the Chinese Reconciliation Project Foundation, who met us on site at the Tacoma Chinese Reconciliation Park and provided extra interpretive help and background information about the park and the history of Tacoma's expulsion of Chinese immigrants, and that horrible history that we need to not forget. And I encourage anyone who has not been to that park yet, please do visit the Tacoma Chinese Reconciliation Park. And then Running the Movement and Comunidad Latinos Outdoor on Trails Day itself put on another event along with Metro Parks Tacoma and Hiking Defiance. And I want to recognize Metro Parks Tacoma for providing translation for that event into Spanish to make the event more accessible. We're trying to do better by all folks and make sure that trails are feeling like they are for everyone. They're for everyone, but we need to make them actually serve everyone well. And it was great to have some translation services for that event. A few other highlights from our Trails Day include I wanted to thank all of the hosts that we had putting on events. We could not do Trails Day without you, and we really appreciate all of the effort that you went through to make the event a success. And I wanted to also extend an invite for folks to learn more about Trails Day. If you visit our website, you'll be able to do just that very thing. You can actually get a report of both this year's and last year's Trails Day events, all the activities that we had going on and highlights from them. There's also details about how to get involved at Pierce County Trails Day. And I want to remind you all that anyone can host any kind of event that is free and within Pierce County and involves active recreation or stewardship. We're very lenient with our definition of the word trail. If there's a self-guided tour, if there's a scavenger hunt, whatever path people are taking actively, that's a trail. If they're paddling, that's a trail. If you're walking along a beach, that's a trail. So we want to encourage you to become a host. And if you have more questions about that, you can reach us via the website, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Looks like we are almost, yeah. Mary, why don't you take us back in and introduce our next speaker?
Thanks, Larry. And Larry, thanks to you. You really took to heart our theme last year regarding equity, access, and inclusion, and really went out and out of your way to find new partners. You can see that in that list, new partners that we haven't worked with before or didn't even know existed that were out there utilizing our facilities. And so really bringing those folks into this program and to this event. And, you know, we learned a lot from them and will continue to. And then also just being able to include them in our future outreaches as we design and develop these plans and trails, because we want them to be accessible to all. And we want to make sure that the trails are built to support them in the way that they need to have them, so that they're ready for all of our guests, especially our BIPOC partners. So
yeah, these partners are crucial. Equity-seeking organizations across the county, we'd love to work with you. It's through the trust that you have built with the communities that you serve. If we work together, we can help design events and get folks out and healthy, enjoying trails, taking care of our trails. So we welcome that kind of collaboration. Thank you.
Very, very exciting. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody, I think we're back on track, and hopefully you had a chance to stretch and grab a drink of water, take care of whatever your needs are, and settle back into your favorite chair so that we can welcome our next great presentation. So we're really excited to learn not only about what's happening, but also just learn from successful projects and programs that are out there. And so right now I'd like to introduce to you Paul Brewster. He's going to share some of the great trail work that's happening in Thurston County, which connects to Pierce County. Paul Brewster is a senior planner with the Thurston Regional Planning Council in Olympia. He's responsible for the Thurston Regional Trails Plan. He supports federally funded projects, commute reduction programs, safe routes to school, bike maps. He's not only working in this world of multimodal planning for over 21 years, he is personally riding and hiking throughout the state. And so he knows what he needs to do because he's out there utilizing those facilities as well. So welcome, Paul. We're glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to the Pierce County Trails Conference. This is my 4th time as a presenter at this event, and I really appreciate the ForeverGreen Council's curiosity about trail activities in Thurston County. I'd just like to provide a real quick description of the organization I work for, Thurston Regional Planning Council, or TRPC. It's a council of governments and a metropolitan planning organization. We have 23 member jurisdictions, including the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation and the Nisqually Indian Tribe. And TRPC's chair is J.W. Foster, the mayor of Yelm, who is a big champion of connecting Yelm to Roy via the proposed Yelm Prairie Line Trail. Regional trails planning fits right into TRPC's mission to provide visionary leadership on regional plans, policies, and issues. TRPC, we really don't build or manage any trails, but our efforts in trail planning aligns with TRPC's role in supporting regional transportation planning consistent with state and federal funding requirements. We act as a convener to build consensus on issues through information and citizen involvement. And 3, maybe most importantly, is we build intergovernmental consensus on regional plans, policies, and issues, and advocate for local implementation. So one of our key responsibilities as an MPO is coordinating interjurisdictional transportation planning, and trails are an important component of our region's multimodal transportation system. And several trail planning efforts have taken shape in our region over the years. In 1977, Thurston County completed the Thurston County Comprehensive Bike Plan. It really didn't identify any shared use paths at the time, but started sort of laying the groundwork for recognizing cycling as an important means of getting around the community. In 1987, TRPC produced the Thurston Region Metropolitan Area Bicycle Plan that started identifying a more comprehensive bicycle network in our urban north area of the county. And in 1993, really sort of right at the time that Rails to Trails was taking shape across the country, TRPC, in partnership with the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, developed our first urban trails plan. And then the latest plan in 2007, the Thurston Regional Trails Plan, it was the first countywide shared use trail planning effort, and it identified 29 trail segments. I also want to mention TRPC, we're responsible for prioritizing and programming local projects for Federal Highway Administration transportation grants, and trails planning, studies, construction enhancements, and pavement maintenance are all eligible types of trail projects. And our region's updated trails plan will be an instrumental to inform our policymakers and build community support for investments in a multi-use path system. And just to highlight, establishing the coalition of partners to finance the major portions of the Chehalis Western Trails Bridging the Gap project is one of our agency's major contributions to our trail network. I've presented on the Bridging the Gap project at past conference. This was a 12-year project. It constructed 3 bridges across I-5, Martin Way, and Pacific Avenue. The latter 2 are 2 major arterials that connect Lacey and Olympia. And today I'm just going to highlight some of the other trail planning and construction activities that have occurred in recent years. So let's just have a glance at the Thurston Region's trail network. Right now, there are approximately 58 miles of publicly managed multi-use trails. The 3 major paved trails are one right in the center of this map is the Chehalis Western Trail running north-south. It's 22 miles. It's listed in the top 10 trails in Washington State by the Rails to Trails Conservancy. The second is the Yelm Rainier Tenino Trail. This is part of the route that's used for the Seattle to Portland ride. Both of these trails are managed by Thurston County. And the third major trail corridor is the Karen Fraser Woodland Trail that runs east-west through the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and is jointly managed by both cities. And our latest Thurston to Chutes Valley Trail is the newest addition to the network, stretching from Brewery Park to Tumwater Historic Park. I'm going to talk more about that and provide some details on that further on. So several trail feasibility studies have been completed and underway, and I'll be kind of presenting an overview of a few of these efforts. So what practices contribute to successful trail projects? As I mentioned, TRPC, we don't really build or manage trails, so our efforts are largely through planning, and that's guided by our regional transportation plan and other major regional plans and policies. Providing funding support for studies and planning and trying to prioritize these projects in TRPC's federal funding call for projects process. But also our partners, the city and the county, the cities and the counties all continuing to construct new trails, removing barriers and enhancing our existing system. So I promise you this will be my most wordy slide, but I think it's really important to kind of lay out what is the policy foundation for TRPC's trail planning efforts. And it starts with our regional transportation plan that is really a strategic blueprint for our transportation system. It provides that overall analysis of how our transportation network is going to function over a 20-year time frame and outlines how we're going to develop that network and coordinate it among the jurisdictions. It's also an important tool in meeting our state and federal transportation requirements, ensuring continued funding from these sources. Also for identifying projects and issues that change the way traffic flows throughout the region, complementing the local planning that makes our multimodal transportation network function with each jurisdiction. RTP addresses the diversity of our region, rural communities, city centers, and outlying suburban neighborhoods. Each has differing issues and priorities as well as common needs and objectives. Multi-use trails are an important component of our region's regional transportation plan. So just a sample here, I think within our RTP, we have goals for walking and cycling, and I think it sort of speaks for itself with policy 11C of investing in a regional network of contiguous and connected north-south and east-west dedicated shared use trail corridors to serve as the backbone of the non-motorized system. Really sets the stage for consistency with local comprehensive plans and not just paying lip service, but making investments in our shared use path network. Also, the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater worked with Thurston Regional Planning Council to craft a strategic framework for reducing climate polluting greenhouse gases while maintaining and even trying to improve our quality of life. And among those is a strategy that relies on reducing the share of vehicle miles traveled through vehicles and expanding infrastructure and facilities that support more bicycling and walking in our community. So I just want to highlight a few of recently completed trail studies: the Yelm-Tenino Trail Extension Feasibility Study, the Grand Mountain Rochester Trail Feasibility Study, and the Gate Belmore Trail Connectivity Study. All three of these were funded by TRPC. Kicking it off first with the Yelm-Tenino Trail Extension Feasibility Study. A little background: former Parks Department Director of Thurston County when it had a Parks Department Director, or I should say a Parks Department, Michael Welter created a vision for Thurston County to have a trail system that would connect every community in the county to the Puget Sound. However, several communities, both incorporated and unincorporated, don't really have any routes planned to connect them to the trail system. So a council member who was a representative on TRPC coordinated with the city of Tenino mayor, and the mayor spoke, and they approached TRPC about a project to conduct a feasibility study to extend the Yelm-Tenino Trail from its existing terminus at Tenino City Park south to the town of Bucota and west out to Tenino city limits. So the project was a partnership led by the town of Bucota and Tenino with support from Thurston County and TRPC. Again, this is the Yelm-Tenino Trail, now referred to as the Yelm-Rainier-Tenino Trail, and this portion of State Route 507 is currently part of the STP bike route. So having a shared use path here would really benefit trail users through this part of Thurston County, as well as Tenino. Expanding it westward is going into Tenino's city limits, where they're expecting future growth and want to be able to have development help pay for that trail corridor as development takes place. And Bucota is sort of uniquely situated in that they're subject to flooding from the Skookumchuck River, and also subject to frequent closings of their main route out of town on this 507 via the BNSF Railway mainline. So they were looking for alternate routes or contingencies to be able to leave town in the event, or have emergency service come into town in the event that those routes are blocked off. So some of the criteria used to evaluate some alternative route scenarios included potential closures due to flooding, directness of route, safety, environmental and water resource conflicts. And TRPC funded this study with a $65,000 federal transportation alternatives grant. We're looking south right now from Tenino to the town of Bucota. The existing trail terminates at the Tenino City Park, and the proposed extension south to Bucota starts where the current rail ends. Note the end of the yellow line in the center of the bottom of the slide. The trail follows Thurston County's existing trail right-of-way out of city limits and then parallels Crowder Road south to 184th Street for 2.5 miles. The majority of the right-of-way for this segment is in Thurston County. And then south from 184th Avenue, the segment in magenta is principally owned by one private landowner. Both of these segments are parallel to the BNSF railway mainline that runs north-south through the center of the slide. And the east side of the railroad tracks, which the trail would be on, downslopes to forested wetlands, and it's in a 100-year floodplain, so a portion of this trail would then be constructed on pin piles to reduce impacts to wetlands. There was an alternative design that looked at the ability of the facility to support emergency aid vehicles. However, this alternative was really added considerable cost to the project. So the preferred alignment, the cost estimate for design, environmental right-of-way and construction is $4.2 million. And for the alternative emergency route, that you can see the cost difference there raises it up substantially to nearly $30 million. So here's just a conceptual design view of the preferred alignment along Crowder Road segment. Shows that 5 foot vegetated strip is proposed to buffer the automotive traffic from the trail users. Going out west, out to Tenino city limits, some of the known issues and challenges are that it would have to traverse along portions of old Highway 99 and get around a railroad trestle that's right there at the intersection of State Route 507 and Old Highway 99. And then once you're under the trestle on the other side, there's a functionally obsolete bridge across Scatter Creek. And of course, this area is riddled with Mazama pocket gopher soils and habitat. Nonetheless, the cost estimate for this project is a little over $2 million. And this estimate doesn't include replacing a bridge over Scatter Creek. So now we're looking at moving further west. I just want to highlight two other studies. The first of which is the Gate Belmore Trail Connectivity Study. This was completed just recently in 2019, but even looking further back, TRPC awarded $866,000 in surface transportation program to the county to acquire this Gate Belmore Railroad right-of-way. So as you can see, the county has had ownership of this right-of-way for quite some time. And so we were just trying to figure out how we're going to move on it. A feasibility study has never been completed. So in 2013, TRPC awarded $43,000 in surface transportation program grant to study that. I'll talk a little bit more about that project, but before I do, I just also want to mention in that bottom left corner of the slide, there's sort of a conceptual corridor showing a proposed alignment that really it's just really a line on a map to show that we're looking to study some type of trail corridor or network between Grand Mound and Rochester. Several projects in this area, including the Rochester Main Street Strategy and Grand Mound Transportation Study, both recommended the need for more active transportation routes in this part of Thurston County that is all unincorporated. And so the county applied from TRPC $150,000 grant to conduct a trail feasibility study, and that is just getting started. We're just kicking off the public process next month. So now talking about new construction, there's the Gate Belmore Trail and Tumwater Deschutes Valley Trail. With the Gate Belmore Trail, this is a total of a 14-mile corridor along the old railroad right-of-way from the south end of Tumwater near Black Lake down south to the community of Gate. This summer, Thurston County submitted a proposal to RCO for constructing 2 miles from 66th Avenue to 88th Avenue. It will replace 2 creosote treated timber trestles with prefabricated bridges. And once complete, the Gate Belmore Trail, as you can see on the slide, is going to connect to numerous sites, including both federal, state, and county properties. Just a quick view of the Gate Belmore Trail corridor. This is a really rural area. Here's a view of the trail shortly after railroad ties were removed. And this is just a view of one of the 2 trestles that are in need of replacement. This is also, some of these bridges are habitat to Oregon spotted frog. So now moving back north to Tumwater, this is the Deschutes Valley Trail corridor. In 2014, TRPC awarded $65,000 in Transportation Alternative Program funds to construct a portion of the trail through Historic Park. And in 2016, TRPC awarded $1.3 million in congestion mitigation air quality improvement funds to construct the trail through Tumwater Brewery Park. The Deschutes Valley Trail will begin at the city's eastern border at Pioneer Park, and it will cross the Deschutes River and outline the Tumwater Valley Golf Course and provide a connection to the new Deschutes Valley Park. From the park, the trail connects to the city's watershed and the Palermo Valley with the trailhead near Capitol Boulevard and connect to Palermo Pocket Park. From there, The trail will continue north up through Tumwater Valley Drive and into Tumwater Falls Park, and it ends right at that border, right there where basically I-5 crosses Capitol Lake. During the construction phase, Tumwater did an excellent job of providing on-site information about the project, including this sign about the project cost and its partners. There was also a large banner hung on the fence that provided design details about the trail. Here's just a top-down view of the new trail just after opening. A group of runners can be seen on this trail. Unfortunately, a grand opening event hasn't occurred due to the pandemic, but Tumwater plans to host one when it's safe to do so. I'll just say that the Deschutes Valley Trail is the newest gem of Thurston County's trails. It isn't the most urban segment in the region, but it is the most cultivated shared use path. I would recommend visiting the trail in May to see the rhododendrons and azaleas in full bloom, and come any time of year to see the spectacular waterfalls where the Deschutes River tumbles north towards the Puget Sound. Here's a view of the trail looking north. It's part of a layered collection of trails, bridges, and viewpoints in Brewery Park. Brewery Park is managed by the Olympia Tumwater Foundation. It's formerly known locally as Tumwater Falls Park, and it's just one of the few places here in Thurston County where visitors can learn about Tumwater's past hydroelectric power, salmon, and beer. So visit the trail, have a picnic in a park, and dispose your waste in the Olympia beer can trash receptacle. And in the fall, one can view the salmon end their life's journey up the river through the new glass-walled hatchery managed by Washington Fish and Wildlife. And I'm just about to wrap it up here. Two more projects. These are enhancements that removed barriers. The first is the Chehalis Western Trail BNSF Railway Tunnel. In 1991, 4 boys set out to camp overnight under the BNSF Railway mainline trestle on an abandoned warehouse or logging road grade near Rainier Road. They brought kerosene to start their campfire. A crisis ensued as the fire quickly spread to the creosote-treated trestle, and it resulted in a total loss of the structure. The Daily Olympian reported the fire was visible from 5 miles away. After the fire, BNSF immediately filled the gap with tons of soil to maintain its railroad, and then the abandoned logging railroad grade was no longer passable below the main line. Unfortunately, right around the time of this fire, Thurston County Parks Department was days away from closing negotiations with Weyerhaeuser to secure the new 22-mile trail that would become the Chehalis Western Trail. This blockage resulted in a 29-year 1-mile detour in the heart of the most popular trail in the county, and this is how the alignment remained for 29 years. So we're now looking south along the Chehalis Western Trail corridor where the trail meets the BNSF Railway mainline corridor. The former Chehalis Western Trail bypass that traversed below the berm of the BNSF Railway corridor to Rainier Road on the left side of the slide. The bypass was a narrow, bumpy, undeveloped route that was never officially approved by BNSF as a public easement and was prohibited per federal rail regulations. By 2018, several safety factors associated with the trail detour became evident, and with the support of executive leadership from both Thurston County and BNSF Railway, the agencies partnered on a collaborative trail and bridge project. So Thurston County contacted BNSF to begin negotiations on a proposal to construct a new bridge and underpass for the railroad main line in the same location of the burned down trestle. In the 20 years that Thurston tracked this project, 2 issues evolved to propel this project forward. First, the safety liability of the location, and the second, the bridge technology. Both of these aspects made this a viable project. BNSF has developed an affordable prefabricated bridge and efficient bridge installation procedures, making the project much more readily affordable than it would have just years earlier. So prior to the new underpass, trail users were illegally crossing the railroad where the paved trail ended and turned into a dirt path. Users now have a direct route below the railroad to remain on the original alignment of the former Weyerhaeuser Chehalis Western Trail. The former bypass is decommissioned and blocked. And the intersection at Talcott Ridge, just further south from this view here, in Rainier Road, the former trail access point, mixed 50-mile-an-hour vehicle traffic on Rainier Road with trail users. since the completion of this project, the county has reduced the speed limit on Rainier to 35 miles an hour. And the crossing was set back into the neighborhood away from Rainier Road. And there's now signs that warn users of the traffic nearby. And I'd just say, if you want to learn more about this project, Thurston County submitted this for an American Public Works Award, and there's more details about the project's construction management and some of the issues they encountered summarized in their award submission. Last project I want to talk about here, we talk about removing barriers, not just for people, but removing barriers for wildlife. The Chehalis Western Trail culvert replacement at Spurgeon Creek near Latigo Street replaced two 42-inch wide culverts under Latigo Street, or will replace under Latigo Street with a 57-foot prefabricated bridge. But just recently, the county finished replacing two 48-inch culverts under the Chehalis Western Trail with a 88-foot bridge and scenic overlook. In addition, there's stream bed enhancements along the length of the project. Construction just finished this month. The construction that was supposed to happen for Latigo Street is now scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2022, delayed due to material shortages and time constraints that are associated with the in-water work for, just basically the fish window. So the construction's closed on that. Funding for this project was made possible by a grant from Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office with the Brian Abbott Fish Barrier Removal Board. And of course, despite all the successes we have, we do have challenges here in Thurston County. I just want to point out maintaining our existing investments. We do have some segments of trails that are over 2 decades old that are showing their wear. We have tree roots that are buckling the surface with deteriorating edges. So we really need a long-term pavement preservation program to maintain the life cycle of these projects. Need to continue enhancing and expanding facilities to meet users' needs, particularly trailheads with parking, because we're starting to see some unsafe parking along sections of county roads where people are trying to get on the trails because the trailheads are filled with cars during peak season. Making sure the trails are safe for everyone. We are having incidents of assaults on the trail and suicide and other issues. We do also have a lot of people experiencing homelessness here in Thurston County that are using the trail. And so some community members do just have perceptions of trails not being secure just based on their feeling. And I think most importantly, the need to sustain coordination between jurisdictions, departments, and stakeholders. Staff turnover, people retire. There's just a need to continue coordinating and keep the conversation going about how we manage and coordinate trails here in Thurston County. That's what I have. Thanks. I'd be happy to take any questions, but I just really appreciate the opportunity to present at the Pierce County Trails Conference today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. We the one question, and you kind of covered at the end, is what are the challenges? And I think that's probably a topic for another conference that we could really talk about in a little bit more detail, because I think we all have to work with those issues regarding ongoing maintenance and impacts by different user groups that sometimes feel like a challenge. But so coordinating what the biggest challenge that you have and working with all the different stakeholders and the railroad and the environmental issues and the neighborhood groups. And is there any one trick or tip that you have that you could share with us as a final word, that something that we should always keep top of mind when working on these projects, because they do take so many years to pull off?
I don't think there's any silver bullet, but I think early community engagement, just early on in the process, engaging property owners, businesses, residents, and other stakeholders about what you're exploring with your planning activities, and keeping them informed in a timely fashion and providing meaningful opportunities for the community to be involved in the planning process. I think that's really key for building support.
Well, that's a great segue to our next session. And so anyway, thank you so much for being here and sharing all that information you guys have done. some amazing work, and we can certainly learn from you and sharing those ideas and those strategies, especially things like new bridges with railroads that can make that process go so much faster or just much less expensive. So that's nice to see that everybody's working together. So thank you very much. Okay, Brandon, thank you. Brandon Gonzalez is with us, and you might not know this, but he's been traveling, and he's, I don't know if he's at a 7-Eleven somewhere working with us, but no, Brandon, we're so thankful that you're here, and he's really about to get to the theme of our conference. Brandon Gonzalez works with Alta Planning and Design, and he is going to talk about getting trails from idea to implementation, which is really, you know, what we're striving to cover today. He's an experienced urban planner and a project manager who specializes in relationship building, public engagement, planning, and transportation policy. He's got over 12 years of experience leading long-range transportation and infrastructure plans, as well as working on comprehensive plans and sub-area plans and growth management issues. He's been a great asset to ForeverGreen Trails and to Pierce County, and we're thankful that you joined us again today to share some tips on getting those trails from the idea to implementation. Thank you, Brandon.
Well, thanks, Mary. Yeah, it's been a day just traveling, but I got in about an hour and a half ago to East Coast for a wedding this weekend, and made it to the hotel room, got set up, so all is good on my end. Let me share my screen. All right, and go to presentation mode. All right, well, it's really good to be back again. You know, I was here, kind of did a session last year on equity and equity planning and trails, and it's good to be back with this group. I mean, it's always fun to kind of just do something with these 501c3 trail advocacy groups, because, you know, I think Paul did a great job of kind of explaining a lot that goes into, you know, the background of a lot of the work that they've done in Thurston County. And these 501c3s like ForeverGreen and Leafline really serve a huge, huge role in kind of helping to kind of keep things moving through this pretty long, you know, decade-long process of kind of seeing a trail from an idea all the way to actually getting something on the ground. So I thought that was a really good segue into kind of this overall topic. So my presentation today is whenever I was talking to Larry about kind of what the topic of the presentation, and, you know, walking through from the beginning an idea all the way through construction or through implementation, the thing that crossed my mind was, if you know Schoolhouse Rock, the "I'm just a bill, just an ordinary bill sitting on Capitol Hill," that's actually kind of what crossed my mind. Well, it's basically walking through how do we get a trail or an idea all the way through to construction and that whole process. And so I'm going to take a really high level approach. I mean, each of these different pieces of the trail design and trail implementation process could probably be a session in and of itself. But hopefully, like, my objective for this presentation today is just to give you a little bit of an idea of what are the general steps that typically go into, you know, idea through construction. What are some of the different pieces involved with each of these steps, and give you a little bit of insight into all of the work that is going on by a lot of different people, jurisdictions, nonprofits, neighborhood groups, everybody to try to actually get the trail built and designed and built. And so this process really kind of starts with that master plan, really high level, 40,000 foot kind of level type of discussion. Then it moves into that feasibility and concept design, where you're kind of going from 40,000 feet down to 10, 15,000 feet. Then you go into final design, which is the area that the engineers really kind of plug in and really love. And you're getting into the weeds. A lot of the really technical design pieces are happening during final design. And then finally, you get to the point of construction. So I'm going to quickly go through these kind of 4 different pieces in a little bit more detail. So starting off with, you know, an idea is born. So there's a lot of different ways that kind of the idea of a particular trail can kind of come to life. I've seen a lot of situations where there's a neighborhood group in a particular community or area that says, you know what, we want to have access to recreation, or there's a regional trail 5 miles away, and wouldn't it be really great if we could somehow have some sort of connection to that trail? Or every day they see a utility easement or a utility line, or there's a canal, or kind of a creek or riparian system, and they kind of look at that and say, wouldn't that be really great if we could have some sort of access to, you know, to that recreation, or use those kind of things that we see every day as some sort of a recreational activity. And so kind of getting back to last year's session on equity, A lot of times whenever we see those types of neighborhood advocacy kind of coming up with the idea of a trail, generally speaking, it comes from places where there is that kind of wealth and power. And that wealth and power turns into influence, which allows those ideas to sort of get generated and kind of get moving. So that's one way that I think, see a lot of the ideas of a trail coming to life. Another one is really kind of the 501c3s like ForeverGreen and a lot of others that are the nonprofits and advocacy groups, that their intent is either to focus on a specific trail, like a lot of times you'll see the Friends of, and their entire purpose is to focus on advocating for either the design, construction, maintenance, continued expansion of a particular trail, or of an integrated network of trails. And so through that process and through those groups, you can also start to kind of identify some ideas on a paper, drawing kind of a line on a map and figuring out, wouldn't it be great if we could somehow connect point A to point B? And that's kind of the foundation of a trail. In some communities, I actually see economic development playing a huge role in kind of this idea generation and the formation of a trail, especially when it's tied to revitalization. There's a few projects that we've worked on that were basically a downtown area that said, as part of revitalizing, we really want to create public space. And there's one community in Northwest Arkansas, kind of in the Walmart home country of their corporate headquarters, where downtown was really struggling, and there was a regional trail that was, at least in concept, had been identified. They really advocated as a downtown business community to have the alignment of this conceptual trail moved to their downtown. They went through, contributed a lot of funding to help to get it built. They had, private partners, and fast forward, 10 years, and they were actually able to get it built, I think 2 years ago. And it's really started to transform the downtown and really kind of bring life back to the downtown that they really didn't have before. So that was an idea that was generated through an economic development background. And then, like Paul, talked a little bit about, there's also the planning processes. Not necessarily your trail master plan, but it could be a transportation plan, a comprehensive plan, neighborhood plans, you name it. There's a lot of different plans that communities and jurisdictions take on. And as part of that, they're kind of thinking about some of these recreational opportunities. And so that could also be, where the idea of a trail comes from. So then once we have this general idea of kind of the thought that there should be or could be a potential trail in this place or in this certain location, then we start to get into master planning. And so master planning, we're still really high level. We're still at that 40,000 foot level, but we're really trying to figure out and put a little bit of details to this idea. We're starting to flesh it out. We may actually create a line on a map at this point. We're thinking about if it's a system plan, how do all of these trails fit together? Where are existing trails and where are there gaps with different trails? We're starting to set the vision and the values. And again, this can be both at the system network planning level, but it could also be for a particular trail. So sometimes you'll see, especially on larger regional trails or really significant trails, a master plan that's created just for that one trail. But typically that trail is so large, it's dynamic, it has a lot of different pieces. And so you're still going through almost this master planning process, even if it's for one individual trail. You're thinking about creating the policy that's going to guide the development of that trail network or of that individual trail. And really, again, we're looking at high level guidance as part of this master planning process and kind of defining what those next steps are that can be explored by jurisdictions as funding and partnerships and other things become available. And the big thing that comes from both, whether it's a trail master plan or a system master plan, is at this point, you're defining what your needs are. And you're trying to figure out, we have more than we can realistically do in the next couple of years, or even the next decade. So how do we break this into chunks that are a little bit more digestible and things that we can actually, start to make a plan for implementation and prioritization? So I would say that those are kind of the big pieces that really come from the master planning level. There's a huge value in doing it, but I know that for a lot of us that want to see details, the master plan doesn't necessarily get us into those details, but it's still a really important part of this overall process. Paul kind of alluded to this in his closing remark, but engagement is really critical during this master planning stage because it's building all of that support from the public, building the awareness for an individual trail or for a trail system, which turns in hopefully to advocacy for that trail or that trail network. And we're really engaging the public meaningfully on a lot of different opportunities, design themes for an individual trail or for a trail network, and really helping them to give us some of the values that we approach prioritization with. It's really tough when you have so much to do and you really need the public to be able to weigh in on what some of your initial priorities should be if you're thinking about a larger trail or an overall trail network. So now, once we kind of have that master plan designed, whether it's for a specific trail or for the overall network, now we kind of transition and start getting into detail. So what you'll typically say from a master plan is they'll identify an individual trail section or trail gap. And then you say, we're now going to move into the feasibility and concept design of that individual gap. Or if it's a larger trail, you're now moving into the feasibility and concept design of that individual trail. So the master plan doesn't get into the details. It really just realistically can't. And now it's our chance to start looking at some of those details. So when we say that we're establishing feasibility, really what we're doing is we're thinking about the master plan's objectives and how can we achieve a lot of those objectives with this particular plan, whether that's, connecting to neighborhoods, connecting to parks, connecting to the sound, outdoor space. What are those values and how do we integrate those within this individual, more narrow kind of area that we're looking at? We're continuing with a lot of community engagement, and we're starting to really get our heads around what the technical constraints are of this individual area. You can see a picture of the power line utility easement here, and a lot of times we say, well, that's a great opportunity. We could do a whole other session on a lot of the challenges that also come with designing within a utility easement, but those are opportunities that we are generally looking for, but we're also trying to understand what are some of the big constraints that we're going to have to deal with moving forward, and what are some of the potential implications when we're thinking about cost. So from that kind of initial assessment, again, the master plan is a big line on a map. When we're thinking about concept design, we're looking at a number of different alternatives that still meet the intent of that high level line on a map. And so this is actually from Pierce County, the Parkland Trail that working with Pierce County and Brianne on. And when we started off with our concept plan, we looked at a number of different potential alternatives. We knew generally where point A and point B were, but there's a number of different ways to get there. So we went through the public process of identifying what the different alternatives were. We looked at the pros and cons of each of them, and we eventually landed on that kind of dark blue alignment. That the northern end's changed a little bit, but generally that's kind of what is shown in the concept plan. And really at this stage, we're thinking about what are the property ownership patterns? Are there potential issues that we may have to acquire certain, private property or right of way also? We're thinking about a lot of the natural and development constraints. In this particular project, there's Clover Creek and an open space area that we knew was a huge amenity. And so we really wanted to try to make sure that at some point along this alignment, we gave people access to this natural amenity. So you're going through a little bit more of the details, utilities and barriers, and trying to really understand which alternative really serves things the best. You're not getting into the weeds yet at this point, but you're definitely on your path or way of getting there. And an important part of kind of looking at the concept design is you're also starting to identify phasing. In the Parkland Trail, it looks like there's a main kind of phase that we've really been designing for that likely is going to be built pretty much all at once. But in a lot of trails, you don't have the ability to do that. So you're starting to think, if you have a 5-mile section or 10-mile section of trail, how are you going to approach funding and construction, and what are the first pieces that you really want to tackle and bite off? And there's a lot of discussions that go into that. You're really thinking about funding opportunities and grants and technical kind of criteria associated with those grants. How can you really generate the greatest number of users? What types of opportunities, especially in regional trails, give you more multi-jurisdictional support that really helps when you're trying to kind of secure grant funding from state and federal agencies, is if you're able to say, it's not just from our community, but we have a number of different communities on board. This has been a part of a planning process reflected in the regional level, the local level, and multiple communities. So that really helps to kind of build that. And also an increased focus on equity and making sure that we're not just prioritizing where the wealth and power is, but we're also thinking about a broader network that is serving all of our communities. And as part of this, again, the concept design is really where that comes to life. This is an example actually from the trail I talked about earlier in Northwest Arkansas. And this was the first vision of kind of a junction between two trails that were being designed and had gone through the master planning process. And this is a little bit of a different type of concept design, but I really like it because this created so much excitement for the community that had been invested in this for 10 years. They were able to actually see it come to life in the first time. And this is really where you're starting to get into a little bit more of those details, thinking about the theme and the character. You're developing what we call a 10% design set. So a really early kind of plan set that shows kind of the trail along the corridor or that you've identified. And you're continuing, again, with a lot of strong public engagement as you're going through this process. I highlighted budget limitations and maintenance because I think that these are two really big things that we often overlook during concept design. You know, it's great to generate a lot of really pretty pictures and really nice things, but we also have to remember that as part of that engagement process, we have to deliver. And so we also have to be realistic in the types of, you know, design treatments and things that we're including as part of that engagement process and what we're developing as part of concept design. Does that fit in with our budget realities? And if not, I think we have a service to sort of scale back and look at areas where we can better focus on those higher design areas and not kind of overpromise and kind of lose the public trust. And then also maintenance. There's obviously a lot of things that happen later on after the trail is constructed, and there's cost associated with all of those. And all of this is typically documented in a concept and feasibility report. So a different type of report, again, we have the master plan, really high level, and then you have your concept and feasibility reports, which are, you know, down to that 10,000 foot level. And then finally, after we go through more of the planning pieces of it, we're ready to get technical. And this is where really the engineers and our technical professionals thrive. I won't go into all the different details because again, we could probably spend an entire session on it, but there's a lot of technical evaluation that happens at this point of the process. We really are doing the survey, the full detailed project survey to understand down to the inches what the implications of our project are. We're doing a lot of storm design, environmental and flood analysis. I know Paul kind of mentioned a few of those that they were having to do, what they were looking into with some of their trails. We're thinking about the cultural resources study and a geotechnical report so that we're not just looking at what's on the ground, but we also really have to have a good understanding of what's underneath the trail itself and how that impacts our design, especially around stormwater. If it's an urban trail, we're thinking about a traffic analysis and kind of information to support a lot of the different crossing treatments that we're using. So there's so much that really goes into this phase. And I don't know that the public often knows that these are all of the different things that jurisdictions are doing as they're going through that design process. Really big piece of this is securing the right of way. You know, if we've identified that there are some right of way areas, whether that be an abandoned railroad right of way, roadway right of way, canals are often great spots for trails because they're linear. But you're having to think about the easements and the right-of-way acquisition or property acquisition. You're working with a lot of your utility purveyors and understanding what the implications of actually, you know, moving your overhead utilities and your underground utilities and a lot of those things that are just really tied to that construction phase. And so this can be one of the biggest areas that can delay a project and can have like long-term implications if you're having to go through and acquire right-of-way. So if you see sometimes that, you know, that there's going to be a major right-of-way acquisition as part of a project, that's just something that you have to think about in the timeline. And it's just something that we as the public have to understand also is a really big, you know, time-consuming piece of the trail process. And then finally, permitting. There's a lot of different permits depending on the type of trail that you have to get. Most of them are tied to kind of environmental permitting. You know, this is just an example of a trail that kind of did a boardwalk to elevate above a wetland to kind of minimize and mitigate some of the disturbance. If there's, you know, larger waterways, you're starting to get into Corps of Engineer permitting, structural permitting. So there's all these different types of permits that you also have to get for the trail itself. And all of this really leads into those engineering, what we call construction documents. Those are the detailed specifications that a contractor uses to actually go out and build the trail itself. So once you get to this point, you have your construction documents, and we hear people say, you know, 100% design or final design. You're ready to go out to bid and pull in a contractor, assuming the funding is there, and get things constructed. So the final step is really construction. It's, you know, we've almost made it. And typically once you get to this point, you're generally smooth sailing. You know, there's obviously things that can come up during construction, but the biggest kind of influencing factor when you get to the construction phase is the timing of your bid. Yeah, you know, jurisdictions really want to leverage the time that they actually go out for bid because that helps to reduce costs and create competitive bids for the projects themselves. So that's really kind of the biggest factor that plays in here. There's obviously weather impacts and other things that can delay a project. But generally at this point, you know, it's really about the excitement of, you know, getting to this point, going through all the different processes and years, and in some cases decades to get this point. And it's really exciting to be able to actually celebrate once you get here. And this was just an example from Southern California. Last year, a really big trail that Alta worked on, the Coachella Valley Trail, took a decade plus to kind of actually come to fruition, and the first segment of it opened with a bang. And it's just something that we all sometimes forget and should take the time to really celebrate and do. So I'll wrap up here, but Funding is obviously plays into all of these different steps. We know money doesn't grow on trees, so it has to come from somewhere. And really, it's about that capital improvement program and thinking about how can you as a jurisdiction fund intentionally trails. But I think the biggest funding asset and the biggest kind of piece of funding that you typically see when you're doing, especially on the design side, are grants. So there's a whole host of different grants. Paul kind of referenced a few of these, but you have federal grants. Sometimes they're distributed through your MPO. Sometimes they're with specific departments. You have state grants. You know, WashDOT is a partner in a lot of trail projects. So is the Recreation and Conservation Office. Nonprofits, I've mentioned this a couple times, play a huge, huge role here, especially on the kind of the design, kind of, you know, advocating for the trail and then helping with maintenance after the trail is built. Exactions, you know, opportunities to kind of get developers have a role in this, whether that's through dedicating fees, through building trails that have been planned as part of an overall system network. There's ways that you can kind of put a little bit on that on new growth itself. And then kind of the holy grail is voter approved levies. If you have the opportunity to do that, which really comes to the engagement phase of trying to really do a lot of engagement, raise the profile and the need of trails, the importance of trails, and hopefully get voters to really think about if they want to invest more intentionally in trails, parks, and outdoor recreation. And then in some parts of the country, private donors are one of the biggest ways that trails get built. I lived in Dallas for about 10 years, and most of the initial trail system in Dallas was really built with 501c or with nonprofits, and that were supported through some pretty hefty donations from private donors that wanted their names all over things. So, you know, take money from where we can get it. I'll kind of skip this for the sake of time, but the high level version is this is probably the most ambitious trail I have ever seen created. Alta just finished work on this and they fully opened it. But they had $200 million from the state of New York to create this overall trail system. And after about a decade of design 4 years ago, the governor there said he wanted the trail built in 4 years. And so they rushed to try to coordinate all these different jurisdictions, state agencies. Obviously, we were the consultant team, and they were able to open this past year. So a pretty amazing feat if the political funding and everything sort of lines up perfectly. So, you know, I hope the biggest takeaway that you can get from the presentation is really that it takes a village. There's so many different pieces that go into making a trail a reality. You know, from your jurisdictions that you live in, your local nonprofits, your business communities, your neighborhood groups, they all play a really strong role in helping to make a trail a reality. And there's so many different pieces along the way that require a lot of professionals and a lot of others to really kind of make this trail a reality. And so next time you get to talk with your trail coordinators at your jurisdictions, make sure you tell them how grateful you are for a lot of the hard work that they do. So with that, I'll wrap things up, and I don't know if we have time for questions, but Mary, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Brandon. That was so exciting. You made it sound so fast and easy, but one step to the other. But that was really great, and it's so great to see your enthusiasm for trails throughout Pierce County. And if New York can do it in 4 years, so can we. That was really great, and it was a good overview too of all the different pieces, because I know there's so many folks out there. They get so excited, they get a plan approved in a budget, and then it's kind of like, well, when are we going to be able to be on the trail? Why can't we cut the ribbon? And there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of pieces. But I really appreciated what you emphasized, as well as Paul did too, is that early engagement in that process, because whether it's getting a good planning information, whether it's getting good community enthusiasm and support, whether it's getting those folks to come out and write letters and help you raise funds, whether it's any of those different funding sources, it always helps when you have that community engagement, for sure. And then just again, making sure that we're talking to the whole community and not just maybe the ones that come to all the meetings and that are always kind of sharing their wisdom, but there's a lot of folks that we're not hearing from and underserved. So really taking that time to find those folks in the community to get their information.
We might have lost Mary there. I'm not sure. I think we have indeed lost Mary. Well, I guess I'll take over. But I again want to thank you, Brandon. I'm seeing a lot of enthusiasm in the chat for your presentation. And so we'll hopefully you can send that along to us. And once again, 2 years running, we really appreciate your participation in the conference, and Alta for lending you. I don't know. Anyway, we really
I like the lending, that works.
Okay, great. So hopefully Mary will rejoin the conference. And at any rate, she was going to introduce me. And I will be, we're in another break here, but we're going to do our raffle, followed by a video from Pierce County Parks, and then trail awards, and then lastly, a presentation on ForeverGreen Trail's role in the region to help us achieve these visions. So we have a number of raffle prizes today. There's a Get Up and Go gift basket, which includes a bag of coffee, ball cap, shirt, and socks. And I apologize, I'm going to speed through things so we can recover some time here. We have 2 REI gift cards, usable online or in the store. We also have a $50 gift certificate from Bonnie Lake Bicycle Shop. They were also a partner in Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance's cleanup at Swan Creek Park as part of Trails Day. So it's great to be working with them. We have a pass for Fantasy Lights, 4 walk passes and 1 vehicle pass from Pierce County Parks, and a $40 gift certificate from Wild Side Wine. So cross your fingers, and hopefully Wheel of Names will now work for me. Our first winner. Hey, Roger. And that's why it pays to buy extra raffle tickets. Look at that Dave Rogers block. Okay, our next winner is talk about big block, Bob Myrick. Oh my. 6 is in. Please mute yourself. And I apologize, I just got to take a quick look. So that was 3, and now we're going to go to our 4th winner for Fantasy Lights passes. And if I'm not mistaken, our last and final winner for the Wild Side Wine gift certificate. Oh, John Selby. Also a multiple ticket winner. That's how you do it. Okay. So congratulations to all the winners, and thank you to the folks who are helping me with tracking those. Really appreciate your help. We are going to enjoy a video from Pierce County Parks.
Pierce County is full of amazing trails that can be used right now as residents are limiting travel, limiting stays, and limiting contact to be safe and healthy. These trails, offered by Pierce County, local cities and towns, and park districts throughout our region, are beautiful spaces right in your backyard so you can limit travel and still enjoy the great outdoors. North Pierce County includes Puyallup and the Ording Valley up to the Carbon River entrance of Mount Rainier National Park. The Foothills Trail sits atop an historic railbed and snakes through the river valley connecting Puyallup and Buckley. This 21-mile trail is wildly popular with bikers, walkers, runners, and equestrians. Pierce County and many partners are working on future connections to the Puyallup Riverwalk Trail across the White River into King County and from South Prairie all the way up to Mount Rainier. Puyallups Riverwalk Trail is a walking and bike trail located along the southern banks of the Puyallup River, connecting the city to the Foothills Trail and the Sumner Link Trail. Puyallup Loop Trail links 6 of the City of Puyallup's parks and open space properties, passing through city parks, city riparian and habitat areas, as well as city neighborhoods. This trail has both soft surface trails and sidewalk connections. Bikers have many street routes that connect the interurban trail out of Keene County with over 14 miles following historic rail lines. In West Pierce County, the Puget Sound shoreline communities and Key Peninsula offer some of the community's favorite trails. Chambers Creek Regional Park includes over 6 miles of paved and soft surface trails. Soundview and Grandview trails connect as a paved loop offering sweeping landscape views. Or hop over to the nature trails at Chambers Creek Canyon to experience a true urban forest with views of the creek and glimpses of local wildlife. Gateway Park's 360 trails offer miles of trails in the woods accessible to walkers, equestrians, and mountain bikers. Point Defiance Park, managed by Metro Parks Tacoma, includes many trails, including the famous 5-mile drive and connection to the Ruston Way waterfront using Wilson Way. These and other popular sites can get busy, especially on sunny weekends. Explore during the week to avoid the crowds. The City of Lakewood offers Fort Steilacoom Park with expansive trails, including a dedicated 5K route and 1-mile paved loop around Wahop Lake. Central Pierce County includes our most populated areas from Tacoma to Spanaway. Breezeman Forest, located near Sprinker Recreation Center and Spanaway Park, is a naturally wooded site with a system of pedestrian nature trails along Spanaway Creek. Pierce County is developing the Parkland Community Trail from Sprinker Recreation Center to PLU to connect local neighborhoods, schools, and community destinations. The City of Tacoma recently finished a section of Pipeline Trail that can take you from downtown Tacoma out beyond the city limits in the Waller community. Pierce County is working on continuing this paved trail to Orange Gate Park with plans to connect another 5 miles to South Hill in coming years. Other community favorites include the Swan Creek Trails managed by Metro Parks Tacoma, where paved and natural trails offer opportunities for birdwatching, hiking, walking, and Tacoma's first trail system for mountain bikes. In South Pierce County, the Nathan Chapman Memorial Trail connects Heritage Recreation Center and the South Hill Community Park with a 1.6-mile forested trail with beautiful scenery. In the future, this trail will be the epicenter of a whole South Hill trail system that will offer connections to the mall, the future Pipeline Trail, Meridian Habitat Park, and eventually a connection down to the Foothills Trail. You'll be able to see that vision unfold over the next decade. A brand new addition to the southern Pierce County system includes Natchez Preserve, a 50-acre site set aside for protection of wildlife and education. The acreage is one of the few remaining undeveloped tracts in the area and represents part of the natural and cultural history of the community. Besides the natural resources, it is located along the route of the Natchez Trail, a historic route originated by Native Americans, military, and early settlers. In southeast Puyallup, the city offers Bradley Lake Trail, part of a 58-acre community park with 2.6 miles of paved walking trails, including a loop around the lake. Getting out on your local trails can be an important way to improve your mental and physical health. During this time and always, safety is the #1 priority, so your trail providers want to remind you to limit travel, limit stays, limit contact, and be prepared while visiting trails at this time.
Wow, great video, great work, Pierce County Parks and everyone involved. We're now going to Trail Awards and then a little bit about ForeverGreen Trail's role going forward before we close out the conference. So thanks for sticking with us. It's a motto in our organization that great trail systems don't just happen. It takes a team effort, and you've heard a lot about that. And from our other presenters, and occasionally there are stars in that team, and you want to recognize their efforts. So this year we have several awards to announce. Individuals with an outstanding year, leadership in a trail project, and lifetime achievements for individuals. Our first award, probably no surprise you heard about the project earlier, goes to Representative Jake Fye and Senator Tawana Nobles. Representative Fye has a long history in elected office, including serving on the Tacoma City Council and also as Deputy Mayor of Tacoma. He was elected in Washington to the Washington State House in 2012, representing the 27th District. He currently serves as the chair of the House Transportation Committee and also as a member of the House Environment and Energy Committee. He's been a stalwart champion for transportation, including active mobility, for many years. And although new to the legislature, Senator Nobles has been a longtime resident of Fircrest and has been an education professional and CEO of the Tacoma Urban League. She uses her talents and life experience to represent the 28th District and is a welcome change on the Senate Transportation Committee. A coalition of tribal and local governments, state and local agencies, and nonprofit organizations approached our region's legislators to support the Tacoma Trail that you heard about earlier in the conference. Thanks to his years of service in transportation policy and funding, Representative Fye was aware of the project and strongly supported its construction concurrently with the SR 167 project. Senator Nobles, while rapidly absorbing a whole new world of legislative issues and processes in her first term, recognized how important this project was for mobility access and social justice, which are priorities of hers. As members of their respective chambers' transportation committees, they each sponsored amendments to support the project and provide additional funding to keep the trail's development on pace with the SR 167 project. With many competing needs and interests in a busy budget year at the legislature, the support that Representative Fye and Senator Nobles gave this multi-jurisdictional project was crucial. We especially appreciate the senator supporting a project technically outside of her district, but recognizing its importance to active mobility in the greater region. Thank you both for helping keep this project funded and on schedule. Our next award relates to the Chambers Creek Canyon Trail, which has been planned since 2013. It involves a partnership comprised of Pierce County, the cities of University Place, and Lakewood. The Chambers Creek Foundation, a local nonprofit organization, has been an important booster of the trail as well, raising both public awareness and funding for its development. There is a significant population in the vicinity of the project, and the existing trail in the canyon is enjoyed by many people as a natural forested oasis amidst suburban development. It is also home to important species such as salmon, steelhead, and the little brown bat. Mobility across the canyon is nearly impossible, and improper or unauthorized crossings can damage the stream banks and impact the environment. This phase of the project included constructing 1.2 miles of trail on both sides of the canyon, some of which is an elevated boardwalk where needed due to topography. 2 bridges were added, providing dedicated creek crossings and helping to knit together the communities of University Place and Lakewood, improving access to transit and shopping on Bridgeport Way. A trailhead with ADA access and viewing area was also added by Zircon Drive in Lakewood. An additional trail loop and another bridge are planned for future phases, pending funding. But this phase is designed, funded, and is in construction right now. For this award, we are acknowledging 2 employees of University Place for their leadership in this great project. Gary Cooper, the Director of Public Works, and David Swindale, the former Director of Planning and Development. They have been involved for years on this project, and we are glad that David will be able to see this phase of the project complete before he retires. Congratulations to you both. ForeverGreen Trails would also like to thank everyone involved in the Chambers Creek Trail Partnership. We hope to see you all at the ribbon cutting, which we will help promote in our newsletter and social media channels once details are set. Congratulations, Gary and David. For well over a decade, Sean Phelps has been a valued member of the active mobility community in Pierce County. He's been an important link from the county's planning and public works department to ForeverGreen Trails, as well as several other organizations and coalitions related to bike and pedestrian, recreation, and transportation. Sean has a lot on his plate in terms of non-motorized planning, so much so that he needed to step back from our board after 10 years of service, which we greatly appreciate such a long time serving our organization. His presence is missed there, but we are all fortunate that he continues to be a public servant working for mobility alternatives across the county. Congratulations, Sean, and thank you so much for your work. For these reasons, and really a host of others, we just cannot thank you enough. Our next Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Jean White. Jean worked in watershed management in King County for many years before applying her skills and passion to trails as their regional trail program coordinator. Jean is known for her ability to bring people together across jurisdictional boundaries, organizations and businesses, and for building trust and respect required to build not only coalitions, but trail projects themselves. The seeds she planted as a founding member of the 4-county Leafline Trails Coalition are starting to bear fruit in terms of collaboration and coordination. We in Pierce County are particularly grateful for her contributions to the White River Bridge project, connecting the Foothills Trail in Buckley to Enumclaw in King County. Although Jean retired this year, she continues to be active as a trail advocate. Join Jean and others from the Leafline Trails Coalition, including ForeverGreen Trails, on a policy ride on October 15th at 1 p.m. to help build support for more King and Pierce County connections by addressing the gap between the Interurban Trail and the Sumner Link Trail, as well as supporting development of the east-west portions of the Interurban Trail through the communities of Edgewood and Milton. Stay tuned for details on that policy ride and the upcoming Leafline Trail Summit in our newsletter and social media channels. Jean, on behalf of the entire Pierce County Trails community, thank you so very much for all you do and all that you have done. Our final Lifetime Achievement Award goes to someone without whom ForeverGreen Trails might not even exist at this point. We recognized Jane at last year's conference when she retired from serving as our executive director for 9 years. When she rejoined our board as treasurer, however, we thought we might still benefit from her knowledge and experience for a few more years at least. But it turns out that a certain newly born granddaughter had some different ideas. After several decades in the Pacific Northwest, Jane and her husband are moving to the Washington, D.C. area to be closer to their family and its next generation of trail users. It would be hard to overstate Jane's contributions not only to ForeverGreen Trails, but also trails and active recreation and mobility in our region. Thank you so much, Jane, and we wish you and your family all the best. So I'll now be talking about ForeverGreen Trails' role in Pierce County. And forgive me for being a little lighthearted here, a little silly, and for using dogs to make my point. In the early days of trail advocacy, the task was largely to get trails on the radar screen of agency staff and elected officials, to get those trails into plans. And it wasn't always easy. If trail advocacy back then was a dog, it might have been a guard dog, watching out for the public interest and making sure that interest was listened to by local governments and park districts. Thanks to that early work, trails are more often not only accepted, but expected, and rightfully so for their massive benefits for health, economics, and their importance for social justice. It's not a perfect atmosphere out there, but it's markedly different and better. To a large degree, the call for trails is now coming from inside the governmental house, as well as outside of it. Our cities in the county have trail plans, and good ones at that. Increasingly, the challenge is not planning to have trails, rather it is the build out of those adopted plans. And that's where ForeverGreen Trails has a distinct role. We need to help our local jurisdictions by addressing barriers to build out. If this kind of advocacy was a dog, perhaps it would be a sled dog, helping jurisdictions to move along that process to get trails developed and projects completed. This year, the Board of ForeverGreen Trails approved changes to our organization's bylaws that help establish a membership structure. We're phasing in 4 categories of membership: jurisdictional, nonprofit, corporate, business, and also individual. The bylaw changes provide specific seats on our board for each membership type. They will help provide assurances for jurisdictions who will be the major backbone funders. They are getting, it helps them understand that they are getting an organization that will work for them. And this structure helps clarify what our role is compared to other trail-oriented entities like the Tacoma Washington Bicycle Club, the Foothills Rails to Trails Coalition, Washington Trails Association, and Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance. I think all of these nonprofit organizations, as well as business allies and individuals, can work together within ForeverGreen Trails, since we are stronger that way. So ForeverGreen Trails is focusing on being a good sled dog for the jurisdictions and helping them with build out of our regional trail system. But what's this sled dog been up to? Plenty. Firstly, working on assessing what our local jurisdictions actually need. The truth is that trail building jurisdictions across the county are far from identical to each other. They vary greatly in size, budget, and internal capacity. We want to make sure we have good information about what they need and in their own words. We need to be smart about this. And that's why, so that when we ask them to join ForeverGreen Trails, they'll see that we're being responsive to their needs and that it's a good investment of their time and energy and dollars. That's why we launched our Trail Scorecard program earlier this year, an outgrowth of an earlier trail-friendly community project. This survey goes further in two ways, however. It asks local jurisdictions about their consistency with the regional trails plan, plans for connectivity with adjacent jurisdictions, and consistency with countywide standards. And more importantly, it asks them what they need and how we can be of service to them, whether it's model policy language, technical support, training, fundraising partnerships, or any other idea that they have. We launched this program at our Trails and Ales event last spring and hope to share survey findings at next year's Trails and Ales event. We would also like to display that survey data on our website as part of a GIS map so that the public can get graphical access to project information, to know which political districts trails are in, and also so that they can get in touch with official stewardship contacts so that they can participate in trail cleanups. But its main use is making sure that we're serving the jurisdictions well. It's a maxim that the first three rules in bike, pedestrian, and trail advocacy are get the money, and get the money. It's easy to say, but it's hard to actualize. Once again, we had to get smart. So we looked at some data from the Recreation and Conservation Office's grant programs and found there were some painful but valuable lessons there. RCO, as you heard earlier, administers the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program, WWRP, an umbrella grant funding program with many categories, one of which deals with trails that connect our communities. So what you're looking at now is a table of the top 10 ranked projects from this past round of the WWRP Trail Grant Program. Notice how close the scores are in that second column. The separation between the highest and lowest ranked scores, lowest ranked projects shown is less than 10 points, suggesting that competition is quite fierce. The bottom three projects in the table are either in Pierce County or connected to it. On the right side of the table are grant amounts. Each project would have been awarded at various levels of funding of the WWRP program in the state budget earlier this year. Figuratively speaking, these three projects were right on the funding cliff. Despite a heroic effort by the coalition that supports WWRP, we were unable to get the legislature to fund the program beyond the $100 million level, still a tie for the previous record. As a result, while PennMet's Cushman Trail Extension received all of the funding it sought, phase 2 of the Yelm Prairie Line Trail is short almost $1 million. And unfortunately, the first round of Pierce County's Pipeline Trail received no funding from this round of the grant program. When we as a region lose here, we actually lose for 2 years because the state's budget is biennial. Since WWRP is such an important source of funding for local trail development, this kind of setback could potentially push out our whole regional trail development timeline. The first takeaway is score higher, but keep in mind, this is elite level competition for limited funds. As we pondered this, Pierce County Parks approached us with an urgent need. They had to deliver a public-private partnership as a condition of receiving grants totaling $1 million for the Sprinkler Recreation Center Outdoor Improvements Project. Since the Parkland Community Trail will serve this facility, ForeverGreen Trails had very good reason to get involved. Together, we devised a fundraising partnership. ForeverGreen Trails, the Parks Department, and 2 community boosters who are big fans of this project. ForeverGreen Trails created a fundraising drive page on our website with a donation portal. Together, we launched a campaign called #SpruceUpSprinkler and promoted the fund drive in the community, in print and also online through our outreach channels. Within 3 months, we had reached our fundraising goal, notified all parties, and successfully leveraged $1 million in grants for this important project in a high needs area of the county. It was exciting to see such generosity from the community and gratifying to render such valuable service to an important jurisdiction partner. We realized that applying this fundraising partnership model to for our jurisdiction members proactively was a strategy to improve our region's trail grant application scores. Public-private partnerships are worth a few points in RCO's trail grant program, a very few points. But as we saw, a handful of points can be the difference between getting funded and not. By having proactive fundraisers for trail projects and certifying the results for grant agencies, we can boost our jurisdiction members' grant applications and help them score more points in the competitive processes. From what I'm told, no regional nonprofit trail group has a similar program in the state. This is innovative. This is our Trail Accelerator program. We've developed a pilot version of this program that we will launch in 2022. And thanks to funding from the Puyallup Watershed Initiative's Active Transportation Community of Interest, we also have $4,000 of matching accelerator funds to help incentivize giving in our next 2 fund drives. We are currently in early discussions with the cities of Milton and Edgewood for Trail Accelerator program partnerships for their respective portions of the interurban trail. We think this is a valuable tool for trail development in Pierce County. In the future, as an organization, we could have targeted Trail Accelerator fundraising partnerships for every single trail project in our member jurisdiction's capital plans, every single project. But first, we'll start with our 2 pilot projects to be announced hopefully early in 2022. We are seeking additional accelerator funds from foundations, organizations, and private donors in order to offer additional incentivized fundraising partnerships across Pierce County. If you're interested in providing such matching funds, or you know of a source that might be, whether an individual or a civic-minded group, please do get in touch with us. The second lesson from the WWRP trail grant data is of course, grow the pie. Being a good sled dog for our member jurisdictions means being involved at the state level and the national level as well, working for increased trail funding, as well as good policy and programs that are responsive to local needs. In certain spaces, being a good sled dog is being a good guard dog, or vice versa. We have to work in coalition with other trail groups, trail professionals, and outdoor recreation and conservation organizations. These are heavy loads politically, and we need a team of sled dogs to succeed. ForeverGreen Trails was very involved at the legislature this year, meeting with several elected officials and their staffs. The federal infrastructure bill was another huge and challenging opportunity for trails, and we closely followed the analysis of each house's bill and amendments, and we communicated with our representatives and senators based on national groups' calls to action. We will continue to work with groups like the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Coalition, Washington Recreation and Park Association, Leafline Trails Coalition, and the brand new Puget Sound Trail Access Network, as well as national groups to share information and coordinate advocacy. We will work to inform and organize and help represent our membership to elected officials at the state and national levels to grow that pie. Now, the main imagery used for this conference has been a compass. And that's been quite intentional. At its essence, a compass is a resource to help keep one on track and heading to their destination. ForeverGreen Trails will serve the people of Pierce County and the jurisdictions that build the trails they use and love. We will innovate, we will coordinate, and we will advocate so that we can help bring our region to the goal of completed trail network connecting all of our communities. But we can only do this with your support. We ask that you, your agency, your business, your organization, or you as an individual become a member of ForeverGreen Trails. Our board is focused on rolling out our new membership structure, so please subscribe to our newsletter and look on our website and follow us on social media for more information about that. Until then, following the conference, you'll be forwarded to a donation page where you can help us not only defray the cost of this conference, but help us continue working for everyone in Pierce County to support trail development. We're also actively seeking new board members. And if you feel passionate about trails, and I know you do, please consider getting involved. Contact us via our website. It's an exciting and important time to get involved so we can all pull together. Thanks very much.
Okay, Larry, thank you. So thank you, everybody. This is, we've gone fast and furious. I think we've covered a lot of ground. Thank you for acknowledging when I exploded, my web crashed, and now I'm back. But we're so thankful that you joined us. We're thankful for your support of parks. We're thank you for your support of trails, and especially the ForeverGreen Trail organization. Your participation today helps us do all of our great work throughout the year. As Larry said, please join us, join the board, come to meetings. Just check out our website. You'll learn a lot, and we want to hear from you so we can do what's best for everybody. So all of these presentations and slides and information will be on our website. You can watch this recorded session. And if you're really interested in anything anybody said, because they did refer to some things from last year, you can actually get on our website and see last year's conference. And that can also provide you some great information to share with your organization. So that's all we have for today. So until next year, happy trails, and we'll see you next time.